Is this Pitt team really different? Yes, the defense has been able to make big stops. Yes, the offense is completely different. But is this team really that different? We've seen this before. Pitt on a winning streak. Home game. Lots of recruits on the sidelines. A very winnable game. This hasn't always ended well. We'll talk Pitt versus Miami and more on this week's Hail to Pitt podcast.
What was your message about finishing it in these final 30 minutes?
Well, it happened in West Virginia where we knocked off number 2. It happened in South Carolina, and it's happening in Pittsburgh today. Our guys had a lot of guts tonight. We're just going to keep getting better. I mean, that's what it is.
One hell of a game that you will never, ever forget. We shocked the world!
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt! This is the week of October 25th, and this is the Hail to Pitt podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Pam.
Pitt had a week off going into Friday night's win over Syracuse. Enough time to prep, plan, and plot to come out and pretty much play the exact type of game they've played all year. After a big lead in the Syracuse game, Pitt gave it up, but held on for a 27-20 victory, and now it's all about the U and a big noon kickoff with those desperate Miami Hurricanes coming to the North Shore, and it's as expected. The Coastal Division is wild, it's wacky, and unpredictable, but kind of predictable at the same time. You're right, Pam. I don't know if things are different or not. All I know is that every week is a nail biter.
Oh, yeah. Every week it leaves us on the edge of our seats. People are talking about how their hearts hurt after the game. It's crazy. It's crazy. We'll find out this week if it's more the same old for Pitt or if they can get out to a big lead and actually stomp on the throat of an opponent and put them away.
Yeah, let's hope so. I don't know, Vince, because while the Miami Hurricanes are, prone to getting embarrassed, the defense is still pretty good. We're going to break them down some coming up.
Yeah, a very stout defense that we're going to go over here. But the Panthers, they should be playing with some confidence. They've won 4 ball games in a row, including this big Syracuse victory game that we all, were somewhat nervous going into last week.
Yep, but they pulled it out in the Dome, and we're going to recap that, look ahead to Miami, talk all things Pitt Panthers with you, as we always do. At H2P Show, if you want to holler at us. Pam, Pitt fans getting hyped for basketball. We're going to have a preview coming up, and people are already interacting with us on Twitter and Instagram at H2P Show.
Oh, yeah. Let us know what you think of the show. Anything you want us to focus on in our upcoming basketball previews coming out in the next few weeks, because basketball season's just around the corner.
Yep. And if you have any, Twitter videos or anything you want to shoot our way so we could look at some highlights of these badass recruits Capel's just pulled in. I want to watch some of them. We're going to talk about another one this week. That's back-to-back weeks. We're talking about big scores for Jeff Capel and Pitt Hoops. I'm hyped for Hoops. I'm hyped as hell for what's to come there. But, man, you got to be hyped for Pitt football too, and we're going to get into it. We are brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com if you would like to start your own podcast on any topic whatsoever. If you know someone who's interested in starting a podcast, tell them to go to prettyeasypodcast.com, get their own personal podcast producer, professional sounding, easy as heck. That's what we got every single week. We just sit here, Vince, and we talk into a microphone. Bam, Pretty Easy Podcast makes it exactly that. So let's talk Pitt Panthers. Without further ado, we have some news. Pitt got 18 votes in the AP poll, Vince. Top 25, not yet, but people are starting to take notice.
Yeah, I think, as you rack up those wins, and sometimes it doesn't really matter who you beat, as evidenced by some of the teams that are in the top 25. I think that'll come. I'm not too concerned about it at this point. Perception is very important in this sport. But I think that top 25, it's coming. We just got to keep adding a couple more wins, and it's going to start this Saturday against the Miami Hurricanes.
I don't know about you, but if I was an AP poll voter, I would always give the team with the most sacks in the nation my vote. I don't care what their record is.
That's a good point, but it's tough, though, because some of those AP poll voters, maybe they don't have the ACC network at home, and they're not able to watch Pitt play.
So that would mean that they have Comcast, right? That's the cable operator? I don't know. We don't know anymore, right, Pam? We're cord cutters.
Yeah, well, we're on the verge of cord cutting in this household, but
I know.
We're about to be cord cutters. Part of the reason we can't switch our provider because we want the ACC network. So, yeah, we're cord cutters, but we're still able to watch Pitt on the ACC network.
Still able to watch Pitt sack the hell out of every single quarterback they face. And this week, oh my goodness, got to be licking their chops. Before we go on to the U, though, how about that game? A.J. Davis, we talked a lot about the running game, Pam, and A.J. Davis came out looking like the most consistent ball carrier, racked up over 100 yards, and has been named the starter for the Miami game.
Yeah, I think I was talking a lot last week about Vincent Davis, how I'd like to see him get some carries if healthy, but A.J. Davis solidified himself this week as a starter.
I was waiting all week to ask you this. I know you were clamoring for Vincent Davis to get in there, but A.J. Davis, did he prove to you that he could be the guy to tote the ball through and carry him to a victory?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want him to take the ball throughout the whole game. I wouldn't mind some Todd Sibley in there as well to give him a little break because Sibley, as we've talked about before, can just kind of fall forward and get some yards, get that positive yardage. If they need that power guy in there, use him as well. But A.J. Davis this past week has solidified himself, and rightfully so. They didn't try and do anything goofy with or starters as they've done in the past.
Well, there was some substituting in that position, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about some of the bad things that happened in this game.
Yeah, this game had a few head-scratching moments, but overall, since we did talk a lot about the running game last week, I was paying close attention to it and was pleasantly surprised at A.J. Davis's productivity. But I still have to say, just by the eye test, I'm a Valik Carter believer. I feel like he looked still like the most explosive player, although they didn't quite get the ball into his hands like they have been. I think so many options really for Mark Whipple. It's kind of changing week to week, but to me, the eye test, Valik Carter shows something that other players just don't have on that offense. But the good thing is other guys could step up, and they did this week after he kind of carried the load of making the big plays for a couple weeks.
Let me pose this question to you, and we can skip ahead to a bad moment here. Would you put Valik Carter as a punt returner to get him the ball?
I would put anyone with a set of hands that will be reliable and not drop it. I don't care who that is. In this game in college football, I'm really over special teams anymore. Like, I'm not even looking for the big play. I just make the smart play. Never return a kickoff in this sport. You should never be doing that. And as far as punt return men, I don't go for the explosive guy. If you're Narduzzi, I mean, he's already worried. He's worried about, putting guys in there enough, but the guys he does put in there muff punts all the time. I would do if Valik Carter proves he could catch a punt and maybe gain a couple yards, that's fine. I'm just worried about catching that damn thing because I'm tired of those.
Well, with this defense, as long as you're not turning the ball over, you got to have some good confidence there. But at the same time, this offense, good at times, but also bad at times. The consistency is not there. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. It's still not there.
It is not. The offensive line, I think, is getting stronger. I think they're getting a little bit more push. They're doing all right for Kenny. I don't think Kenny looks as flustered as he did early in the season. But like we talked a lot about last week, the inconsistencies. They go into this game. They've gone in the last couple games. They are the better team. When you have a defense like this, You're going to be the better team usually. Your offense needs to just make so many plays and play smart. They are not playing smart on offense or special teams, and that's why every week's an adventure, Pam. I don't know if that can be fixed. I don't know what the issue is, but that's like the only thing that is consistent about them is that they're inconsistent.
Yeah, in addition to the muffed punt, Vincent Davis almost fumbled at the end of the game.
Wow.
In a very, very key spot.
He was down. He was down. I was not worried about that at all. He hit the ground. That's not an issue. I felt like those refs, some of the worst we've ever. Was that not the worst?
That was awful.
That was embarrassing last week. I've never watched a game where the announcers just put the boots to the referees the way they were Jim Mora Jr. and that other guy, right?
Yeah, they crushed them, and I usually am trying not to be too critical on the officials, but that was brutal to watch, and then they take 20 minutes to discuss it? Ugh.
Most embarrassing was they forgot that it was, third or fourth down early in the game. How do you forget what down it is?
It's happened before. But with today's technology, it's kind of unbelievable that it happens.
Yeah, so those were some of the crummy things, but let's not forget that this team looked pretty awesome throughout parts of this game. 9 sacks. And you think Paris Ford was just chomping at the bit to get into the second half because he gets in there and he KOs Tommy DeVito. And
yeah,
this was just, one of the most vicious performances by a defense I could remember.
Yeah, and if there was better coverage, and Coach actually pointed this out in his press conference, if there was better coverage on that 94-yard pass play, Paris Ford may have ended up with a sack there because he was coming in free. I thought he played excellent. I thought the defense as a whole played excellent. Really, the only complaints you got to have is that 94-yard pass. They held Syracuse to 328 yards, 94 of them come on one play. And some of those pass interference calls, particularly that one on 4th and 25 or whatever it was, just awful. You cannot have that stuff. Some bad pass interference penalties. But other than that, defense played excellent.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would just shorten these games. It should be 10-minute quarters or maybe 8, and there would be less time for Pitt to give up leads or make mistakes. What are they doing playing bump and run coverage on 4th and 25 or a 3rd and long when the team's back's on their own goal line?
That's Narduzzi's system, though.
I'd have to go back and review the tape to see exactly where the guys, where that coverage broke down at. But
he held
regardless,
him. That's why it was pass interference.
Well, that's right. But how close was he to him at the time of the snap?
Dane Jackson was playing right up on the line of scrimmage on the 4th and 25. He was
right on him.
He was playing, right up on him. That was right there. Like, why not just sit back? What is the harm? Nothing was going to happen if they caught the ball and got anywhere short of the first down marker. Kick a field goal, go ahead. Pitt's got this lead. That was a disaster. It was almost as embarrassing as the referees forgetting that it was 3rd down or 4th down. There's no excuse. And I don't care if it's the system. You play back there. You play the sticks. My goodness.
Well, I agree with you. But, other than that, the defense I thought played great. And the offense played very well too, I would say, for a lot of the game. But specifically, some of those 3rd down drop passes, there were 3 of them that I saw just, killed the drives, which is absolutely awful. Pitt probably could have put up another touchdown or 2 had that not been the case.
Yeah. I can name 2 names of the drops. It was Matthews, Griffin Stewart,
and Will Gregg.
Oh. Will Gregg had that really bad.
And that was the one in the 4th quarter or 3rd quarter.
Yeah, and Whipple said some very choice words to him on the sideline.
Yeah, that Whipple was hollering at a lot of people in that game. Whenever they showed him on the sideline,
they deserve to be hollered.
It was usually catch the expletive ball was the ones I saw.
Well, I don't think. Well, one thing he wasn't. Well, maybe he did at the beginning of the game. The offensive line at the beginning, this first couple series, Kenny was getting harassed every play. It seemed like, and I was saying to myself, "Here we go again here." But they made some adjustments, and I thought the pass protection was particularly very good after those first couple series. Particularly Jake Cradle making his first start at right guard, a redshirt freshman in there. I think that's huge going forward.
Who did he start over?
For Gabe Hoy was out of the game, so I think that's a good sign. Playing a young guy in there, not just for this year, but for years forward.
Was he hurt or was that a coach's? Okay.
Yeah, that was really nothing on the offensive line that was upsetting or worrisome. I thought after they maybe got the jitters and that dome was pretty fired up but at the beginning, and then Pitt kind of shut them up with how the defense was playing, and then until the fourth quarter when it got close again, they were a non-factor. But who knows? Maybe that played a part. But still, there were some penalties and drops that just fix them, please. I still, though, going into this game against Miami, I cannot wait for the first 3rd and long or 4th and long, and Miami's going for it to see what kind of defense Narduzzi throws out there, because that was just the one thing that irked me the worst was that pass interference. But Pitt pulled it out, and they covered, I believe, right? That was a cover?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a cover. So what more can you ask for, I guess? It was an adventurous Friday night. And now, big noon kickoff, the U, who lost to a team that I think we can all agree they shouldn't have lost to, Georgia Tech, 28-21 overtime loss. And they were big favorites in that game, right?
Yeah, an 18-point favorite. Miami was.
And that's the only game Georgia Tech's won in conference this year, correct?
Yeah.
It might be the only game they win in
that
conference.
Might be the only game they win for the next couple years.
Yeah, it's a really rough week for the Miami Hurricanes. You lose to Georgia Tech. They've gotten Cozy Perry now out with a separated shoulder. So Jaron Williams comes back in, I guess, or maybe Tate Martell, who knows what's happening for them at quarterback. And then compound that, also their former head coach, Mark Richt, suffered a heart attack earlier this week, works for the ACC network, and we're hearing he's, doing all right afterwards, but just a rough week for the U as they try to bounce back against Pitt this Saturday. And really the matchup is just shaping up really well for the Panthers against this team that doesn't know what they're doing on offense. And I mean, defensively, they're pretty solid, but I don't know if they're in Pitt's category. I mean, if this comes down to which defense can make more plays, I'm taking the slam dunk, send it in hoop over the turnover chain this week, Vince.
I agree with you. And Pitt should have a lot of good opportunities to make some plays here. Like you said, Alan, N'Kosi Perry, most likely going to be out with a separated shoulder. Jaron Williams, freshman quarterback, he's had some shoulder injuries. Tate Martell looked awful in spring ball and in fall camp by all accounts.
He played wide receiver in the Florida game, their first game of the year.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much confidence there is in him right now. And this is a team, they start a lot of freshmen on that offensive line, particularly at offensive tackle. Miami, they're number 127 in sacks allowed at 4.3 a game. Syracuse, who we just saw, was dead last at 5 sacks allowed per game. And Pitt had 9 sacks against them. So I think it's reasonable to expect that Pitt should be able to, have their way with that Miami offensive line. Pam, I can't wait to see your reaction if Tate Martell gets in there at quarterback and Jalen Twyman stomping all over.
Yeah, I think I was calling for this while we were watching the Syracuse game. They just need to blitz and get pressure every single play on this
They couldn't
team.
stop them.
They could not stop them. Send the house. Let the back end of the defense do their job. And it's the same thing this game. Tate Martell, number 1 player in the country, went to Ohio State, transferred once Justin Fields went there. He was part of the quarterback carousel this offseason in college football. And it's not good when you're top recruit and you're playing wide receiver in your team's first game. So I think this Pitt's defense needs to get pressure every single time. And I think it will be a good day for this Panthers line once again. But looking at the offensive side of the ball, Miami has a good defense. And early in the year, Pat Bostic, when he was on the show, talked about how Miami's defense is right up there with Clemson. And so Pitt's offense needs to make sure not to make those key mistakes. Hold on to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are you going to do with your Mark Whipple? I mean, you're going to be pretty conservative this week, right? I mean, you got to imagine you're not going to be having Kenny drop back a whole lot, or drop back deep at least. I mean, he's obviously going to be throwing the ball a million times because that's what they do, but you got to be smart this week. I mean, they are legitimately a very good defense. Shaq Quarterman is a badass. Michael Pinckney is a badass. This is a very good team. I don't know what happened against Georgia Tech, but don't forget they did beat Virginia. This is a team that looked all right against Miami against Florida early in the season. And, Pitt's favored, obviously, but this is the Coastal. Who the hell knows? And this game could end up being both teams scoring in the 30s because there might be that many mistakes made on the field. That's what I'm almost anticipating.
Or some short fields caused by turnovers, maybe scoring on defense. You're talking about Miami, 19th in total defense, 27th in points allowed, 19th in tackles for loss. That is a huge number for me. That means they're making plays, they're getting behind the line of scrimmage, really getting after it. And I think that's going to be so important for Pitt not to have that happen because, while we do have some playmakers that can get can convert a big third and long, we've also seen a lot of drop passes and stuff. Even if you do design a good play and get somebody open, we're not always converting.
I'm hoping that Pitt's going to be getting a third string quarterback in this one. We're here on what? This is late Tuesday night, earlier in the week recording, but it sounds like Jaron Williams will be back just in time for this one.
That's what I'm hearing. He did play a little bit in the game against Georgia Tech, so it sounds like he's not 100%, but he might be all they got.
I will say one player I'd worry about going into this game is Jeff Thomas, who is a pretty good player, hasn't done a whole lot this year. He is their second leading receiver. No, third now here. The emergence of Brevin Jordan, looking at their stats, but Jeff Thomas. So last week suspended what their leader at on offense. I would say their most experienced dude. He was suspended last week. Who knows if he'll be back this week against Pitt? But if he is, anytime you got a player coming off of suspension or having to sit out a half, as we saw last week against Syracuse, highly motivated players. Another player, though, that might be good for Pitt going is DJ Davis, banged up with a knee. His status also unknown for this week. He is their leading rusher. So, like I said, Pam, this Miami team banged up, has a lot of issues, but at the same time, just 2 weeks ago, had their biggest win and best moment of the season. So you can't write them off at all.
No, not at all. I mean, I wouldn't actually look too much into that loss at Georgia Tech. Historically, in recent years, Miami has not played well in games that they're a big favorite in. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was kind of, we call it like same old Pitt. For Miami fans, that was the same old Miami there. But I think you touched on it, that some injuries, players banged up for Miami, but you can't take their skill for granted.
Well, they're a very talented team, but and they beat Virginia, who was in the driver's seat, a couple weeks ago. But then you come out and lose to a team that you had no business losing to. That they've already got, I think it's like 3 losses in conference right now. So their chances of winning the division are not very good. Their chances of getting a good bowl game are not very good at this point. they're essentially in this mode where they got to run the table the rest of the way. You got alumni like Clinton Portis. He's calling out head coach Manny Diaz, calling for a coaching change. They are not happy there. This team could be on the verge of just a complete meltdown. And that's why Pitt, it's so important that they come out and they really take it to them early, because if they're down by a lot, I wouldn't think they'd have much motivation to come back. Now, they did a couple weeks ago against Virginia Tech, but maybe that was a few games earlier in the season, and they felt like they were still in it.
Yeah, this is going to be incredible to see two defenses with crazy gas tanks, crazy talent. Miami has to have a chip on their shoulder after giving up 28 to Georgia Tech. I'm expecting a barn burner, big noon kickoff at Heinz Field this Saturday. It's ridiculous that anyone would say fire Manny Diaz when he's going into a season essentially with no quarterbacks, if you ask me. They've got a terrible situation at quarterback before they were all injured, and now they're banged up against Pitt. What's the spread on this according to our friends at the Westgate, Vince?
Yeah, we're at 5 points right now at the Westgate, fluctuating between 5 and 5.5. Kind of surprised. Like, I never thought I'd see Pitt favored by this much against the Miami Hurricanes team.
Most sacks in the nation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but Miami's, they're up there as well in that statistic. I expect this to be a low-scoring game between these two teams. It just seems like these defenses are very good, two of the best. Between
their two quarterbacks, they only have two shoulders. Kenny Pickett's got two unto his own. I got Pitt, and I got Pitt covering because they're killing it against the spread lately, right? Is it Pitt really well ATS this year?
I want to say that they're, I think it's actually same as their straight up record, 5-2.
I like that. All right, I like it. I like the 5. I don't want to mess with that 5.5. You give me the 5. I'm taking Pitt at home, big noon kickoff. And Pam, I'm calling it the first game where Pitt doesn't lose the turnover battle and doesn't lose the penalties battle. Clean as a whistle, great defensive game, and they thump Miami.
I think it's going to be a little close, but not too close. I think it's going to be about a 20-10 game.
Yes.
I think Pitt's going to score just enough, and then their defense is going to just get all over Miami's defense.
I'm going with the
Miami's offense.
Same exact score as you. I'm with you. 20-10. I love it.
You know what? I'll make it 3 for 3. 20-10. It sounds like a good score to me. It's going to be low scoring.
If this game hits 20-10, we should all go straight to like the casino or straight and play a lottery ticket.
I was going to say your local gas station for a cash 5 or something. But it just seems like Alex Kessman getting back in the groove last week, hit a couple field goals. He's starting to look better. I'd be a little surprised if Pitt was really able to score a ton of points against this Miami team. But same way, Pitt should be able to handle this Miami offense pretty well, I think.
With that said, my alternative score, my backup score, is going to be 40-30, just in case it's a really extra sloppy game where the ball's flopping around everywhere and people are running in special teams and defensive scores or getting the ball on the 2-yard line. Yep. Kessman hit a couple inside 50 yards too. That's the tough one. Those are tough for him. This is still a huge game, even though Miami underperforming. This was marked on a lot of people's calendars. So show up, big noon kickoff, get hype, and get ready for probably what will be another nail biter because it's the Coastal and Pitt is right there and waiting for Virginia also to lose just one more. Pam, do you think we'll get one?
Yeah, I think they're going to lose one more. It could happen against Louisville, a team that plays good teams very well for at least a spurt. It could happen the last game of the season against Virginia Tech. You never know in those rivalry games.
Louisville was only down by 14 to Clemson for almost 2 quarters.
Well, they played Notre Dame tough earlier this year. So
Yes, I am very much looking forward to talking about that game here in just a moment. But let's get into some more Pitt news this week. Vince, big commit for basketball, and literally, again, another big commitment. 6'8", 240 pounds. John Hugley. I want to give him a big hug when I see him on campus out of Cleveland, Ohio. And people are saying this is the biggest and best score for Jeff Capel yet.
Yeah. 4 stars by Rivals.com. 95th overall player in the country in that 2020 class. This kid had over 30 offers. Kansas State, Missouri, Miami, NC State, among others. People think very highly of this kid. This is the 3rd front court player, Pam, that Coach Capel has added to this class. He's clearly recognized that we have a weakness in the front court, and he's added some big bodies down there, some good athleticism. I can't wait to see these kids really get in there. In a couple of years, I expect some big things from this front court again.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about with the recruit last week how there's some big, quick, athletic guys in the ACC, and you need those bodies to match up with them. And it's been a position, the front court, where Pitt's been very, very exposed in recent years. Ever since their move to the ACC, you could argue.
Yeah, I mean, we've had even going back, some of those final days in the Big East, when for some reason we're playing guys at the 4 position that are 6'5", as skinny as a rail. That's just not going to fly anymore. And I can't wait to see this fixed.
I have 2 questions then. So compared to Big Max, who we talked about last week, the recruit that Capel landed out of Brooklyn, Hugley is, from what I'm hearing, thicker, actual, like a little bit more built and physically developed compared to last week's recruit.
Yeah, from what I understand, that this kid, when he was a freshman in high school, weighed over 300 pounds.
Wow.
And he's lost a ton of weight, and he's in excellent shape right now. And I can't wait to see him get on campus.
Is this the best recruit Capel has by
I think
some people's measures?
He is the 2nd guy in the Rivals.com top 100. McGowan was the top guy. But those guys will come, and we've seen, even a player like Xavier Johnson was not a top 100 type player, but arguably the best player on the team right now. So I think Coach Capel has done an excellent job identifying some talent, ACC level talent. I can't stress that enough.
And my second question is there any truth to the rumor Pitt lost the secret scrimmage this week to the Terrapins?
It's tough to speculate, but allegedly that's what I heard. They lost by 9 in this secret scrimmage to Maryland, who is a preseason top 10 team, I believe, by the Associated Press. Does this mean anything to you, Pam? Have these early season scrimmages? I mean, Pitt is going to have a very tough test in their opening game of the season. Is going to be against Florida State and an ACC network special. So they're going to be kicking off conference play very early, and then have a long break and then get back into it. Do you make anything out of this year? I mean, we obviously don't know any of the details. We don't know how this team's going to perform yet. But does this seem like a good sign? Do you put any stock in this at all?
No stock, because you don't know. A, it was a secret scrimmage. B, Maryland, you don't know. Sometimes coaches and scrimmages, they just try and run a certain play or a certain defense to work on it over and over and over and over again. Maybe that's what Maryland did. Maybe that's what Pitt did. We have no idea. So I take 0 stock into this. The best part about these scrimmages is, knock on wood, no injuries come out of it.
Pitt Hoops, we're going to have a very special preview for men's and women's basketball next week, I believe. So get ready for that, everybody, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast, Hail to Pitt podcast, and tell any of your hoop freak friends that we're going to be talking a lot of basketball here shortly. And also, we want to shout out to volleyball as well. While Pitt football got some AP Top 25 votes this week, volleyball got some first place votes. Well, one first place vote. They're 3rd overall only one loss this season, which I believe was to Penn State, and they will be hosting the NCAA championships at PPG Paints Arena later this year. And this is the team that everybody, I could tell you from walking on campus each and every single day, it's the team everyone's talking about. Everybody is supporting volleyball on campus. They're killing it, and they are just getting ready. I mean, the big time is about to start. They do have some big games coming up this week, though.
Yeah, they play Notre Dame and Louisville this week. 2 ACC opponents. They aren't ranked, but they were in that others receiving votes category in the recent top 25 poll for the volleyball season. So just want to make sure we're covering them as well because they are the most successful sport on campus. So they still have a long season ahead of them, a lot more matches, but looking good so far.
Yeah, and I think we should probably make a point to try to get to those NCAA championships. I want to hail to volleyball in person at least once this year. Midterms are finally kind of winding down, Pam, so I might be able to finally make it up to the top of the hill to go see them maybe before December also. They are really, I'm telling you, there's buzz about Pitt Volleyball on campus, and there should be anywhere there's a Panther fan, because you need to hail to volleyball when they're killing it. 19-1 on the season. We have some more football to talk. We have some more Panthers to hail, Vince. But before we do all that, around town, there's a lot of talk stemming from that Syracuse game going into the U.
Yeah. I'm starting to sense a little bit of optimism around Pitt fans. Maybe they don't want to admit it yet, but it's still going to be tough this weekend against Miami. A team that brings that kind of swagger, always very controversial. Never know what to expect from these guys. They could come out and be the best team in the country, or they could just fall flat on their face.
It's always a fun team to beat, and you got to be optimistic. And everyone is around town going into one of the biggest weeks of the season for Pitt football.
Another Saturday coming, and the Panthers are playing. Time to find out what the answers are saying.
I'm sick of Miami with that turnover chain. Our Send It In basketball hoops at least original.
Yeah, I was at that game when Jerome dunked that ball.
No, you weren't. You were working down a mill that night. I remember that.
How do you know? You were playing cards up with Butchie at weekend up Freeport.
Get out of here, you jagoff. You're only 25.
Hail to Pitt.
What the answers are saying.
That's what the Yinzers are saying. Huge game. Can't stress that enough. Big noon kickoff at Heinz Field. Miami Hurricanes coming to town. Panthers going for 5 in a row to improve that record to 6-2, hopefully on the North Shore this Saturday. Big noon. But we also got some other college games going around the country. Another game that was going to be a big noon, maybe the biggest noon of all, was going to happen. But that got tripped up earlier this week, Alan.
Oh, college football. Don't you dare be sour. Clap for the Wisconsin Badgers. And, well, they blew it last week, but they could still feel the power against Ohio State this week. I think this will be Ohio State's closest game, but my goodness, I'm so disappointed in the Badgers. Vince, I was giving it to you all season long about the Badgers. I was on that bandwagon. They let me down, but I'm not giving up on them just yet. I don't think they could beat Ohio State. They're one of my playoff teams, and they look better than I even thought they would be. But I think this will be a game within, I'm going to say 10 points. Maybe even one score. I think Wisconsin's going to play them tough.
Wisconsin currently a 14-point underdog at the Westgate right now. And when you said, Alan, that this was going to be Ohio State's closest game to date, I thought you meant like they were only going to win by 20 or something. And Pam, this team has been so impressive, Ohio State. I mean, you could say that they haven't really played any top-notch competition. I guess they're going to see a good Wisconsin team this week, but I'm not stepping in front of these guys at all.
No, I think they're going to win by 3 scores. I think they're going to crush Wisconsin. It might be their closest game. Wisconsin had the most disappointing loss in all of college football this year, because even though Georgia lost to South Carolina is actually a decent football team, whereas Wisconsin lost to Illinois. And other than Rutgers, is there a worse team in a Power 5 conference than Illinois?
Oh, I'm sure you could find some. Georgia Tech, probably.
Maybe. Okay. Easily, other than Rutgers, a top 5 worst team in Power 5. And they just blew that one. So I think Ohio State wins and covers easily in this one.
Ooh, I don't know about easily. I think as impressive as Justin Fields and that offense have been, everyone has an off week. And when you play a defense that's probably going to go through their toughest week of practice all year, and they are pretty good, and I think Wisconsin's gonna bounce back, at least in terms of respectability. Do not know about winning this one. I'm not that ballsy. I'm not that much on their bandwagon, but I think that big noon kickoff hopefully is a better game than Pitt Miami at the same time. I won't be watching that game. Maybe on my phone while we're at our game, if there are a lot of stoppages for the referee to figure out what down it is, Vince.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could get some good viewing of around the country during some of these games. Next one here. This is one that we're all going to be paying very close attention to. If you're going to have a game on your phone, this is probably it right here. Virginia, a 3.5-point favorite at Louisville this week. We talked a little bit about it earlier. This is one we need Louisville to win. I thought Duke was going to give Virginia a game last week. So did a lot of sharp players around the country, as far as I'm concerned. But Duke just got blasted by Virginia. Virginia, 3.5-point favorite here. Do you think Louisville is going to be able to pull this game out?
I think they're going to make it competitive more so than Duke. I don't know if they're going to win, but Scott Satterfield, great coach for Louisville, really turned that program around, and his team plays hard the entire game there. And so they just had that marathon game with Wake Forest a few weeks ago. They played Clemson. They've played some good teams tough here. I don't know if they'll win, but I think it's going to be very close here. We really, pains me to say this, but we're going to be cheering for Louisville this week.
I don't think they're going to even come within the 3.5. I got Virginia covering. This Louisville team has a long way to go, I think, before they're back. Pam, if they would have got Jeff Brom from Purdue, I would have picked him here. I don't think Scott Satterfield's the guy to beat Virginia, unfortunately. Maybe somewhere down the road this season, those Who's will lose one for Pitt. But this week, I got him. I got him going on the road. I think that Miami loss might have actually been good for them.
Well, it was good for Pitt. I know that, but and we need something else good to happen this week. I don't think Louisville's there yet either. I think Virginia's going to win this game.
Unfortunately. I know we don't have them listed here real quick, but no Tua at Alabama. I mean, seems really weird. Tua's out.
Who did they play? Arkansas?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have a bye week, then they play LSU. He's got 20 days to recover that ankle.
It almost feels like it was planned, this surgery. I don't know. It's crazy. That team's only had, two quarterbacks for the last 18 years? Tua and Jalen Hurts?
I don't know if it's been 18.
It feels like that long ago. I don't know.
Either way, they don't need him this week. Pam could play quarterback against Arkansas this week and easily would win.
I don't know if you could, though.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say I know Pam can. I can. I don't know about you, Vince. They would have an issue.
I'd just have to hand it off every time.
Yeah, I could actually let it fly a little.
Well, you know who's going to be doing that is the Heisman leader in the next game we're talking about, Vince.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, number 2 LSU Tigers. They're going to be hosting the number 9 Auburn Tigers. Auburn, a 12-point underdog here, going in the Death Valley. This is a 3:30 CBS game. LSU is just on all cylinders right now. They are just crushing people. And, Auburn's got a very good defense, but I don't think their offense – this is similar to that game against Florida that LSU had. I don't think Auburn's offense is quite as good as Florida's was, and that's why I'm especially with Bo Nix at quarterback. That's why I think LSU not only going to win this game, but I think they'll cover this 12-point number.
12 points is a lot of points for
against Auburn.
A good Auburn team.
I don't care for Auburn.
Yeah, but they're good this year. They're definitely worth that number 9 ranking. 12 points is a lot. I'm going to say LSU wins, but Auburn's going to cover here.
Do you really?
LSU in their big games this year have given up points, right? That
defense hasn't been as sharp, and maybe because they haven't had to be.
I got LSU winning too, Pam, but I'm with you. I think they win by 10 or 11. You know, it's going to be right around that 12. Someone knows something, but I think LSU wins. My real concern in this one is, I mean, this is a good defense Joe Burrow's playing to, keep making his case for Heisman. How many touchdowns does he throw?
3.
What do you think, Vince?
I don't know. At least 3, maybe 4, 5.
I'd say 5, maybe. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair.
If Joe Burrow throws 5 touchdowns in this game, they're definitely going to cover that 12-point number.
I don't know. Auburn could get some special teams touchdowns in that, and their defensive line could also score touchdowns as well.
Grant Delpit, Michael Divinity.
They've given up points in their biggest games this year. Florida and Texas, they gave up a ton of points.
They're still holding up. There's still, they still beat Florida by 2 touchdowns.
They did. They could score a lot of points, LSU, and definitely worth that number 2 ranking, and definitely resulting in me getting tweets from people who used to listen to my radio show in Louisiana saying, "Ever since you left, the Tigers are winning now." So I left, so now they're good again, I guess. I'm rooting for the LSU Tigers against the Auburn Tigers in this one. I definitely want to see a big time LSU Alabama matchup with some undefeateds. So I think everyone in America should be rooting for LSU with that regard for a big game down the line. Last game we're talking about this week, Vince.
Yeah. Number 8 Notre Dame going to a rare night game at Michigan. Number 8 against number 19. Michigan surprisingly a 1.5 favorite in this game at the Westgate. Michigan, should have at least tied Penn State at the end of that game on Saturday night. Just a horrible dropped pass. Looked like Will Gregg almost. It was horrible. I could not believe he dropped that.
Well, I could. I could.
Well,
it was Michigan against the ranked team with Jim Harbaugh as the coach. So I believe.
Now, Alan, you said Jim Harbaugh was going to get fired if he lost that game. Do you still feel that way?
I definitely think he's going to be fired soon. I thought it would be this week. And Pam, I just want to put it out there. I was not the booster for Michigan writing the letter to try to get Jim Harbaugh fired this week that he was talking about at his press conference. That was not me. Although I echo those sentiments. Why keep him around? I don't know.
I'm glad we have you on record with that. Maybe they are keeping him around because of his big salary and huge buyout. The USA Today coaches' salaries came out this morning or last night, and so Jim Harbaugh is definitely up there. So maybe they're just saving a few pennies, keeping him on the books a little longer.
Yeah, I guess. But, I mean, if you're going to do it this year, you got to do it pretty soon. There's recruiting to be done for Michigan. That was embarrassing last week. I got Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I'm confused as to why the line's this close.
I don't get it either. Conventional wisdom say Notre Dame should win this game. I don't care if it's on the road or not. We saw this a couple weeks ago with that Miami team being favored against Virginia, and lo and behold, Miami came out on top. Those desert people feel pretty strongly about Michigan.
Are you going to pick Harbaugh?
In these kind of situations, I side with the desert people.
Are you going to pick Harbaugh?
Yeah, I guess I have to.
Okay.
Desert.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's going to win, but I'm picking Michigan.
What does that even mean?
That means I don't understand why the number is only what it is.
I have a more relevant question then.
Yeah,
as we wind down. The game day locations for ESPN are still, for the rest of the year, they're fluid. Is there any chance Pitt lands one? Like,
no.
Not at home against. Well, game day can't be on a Thursday against North Carolina. I guess the only other hope would be against Boston College. Yeah, you're right. That's not happening.
There's no way because that's the last week of the season, so they're going to go somewhere like Auburn, Alabama.
Well,
they're going anywhere else.
We might have a chance at having it at Virginia Tech for Bud Foster's last home game.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Virginia Tech's bad. We're okay. This week they're going to North Dakota State or they're going to South Dakota State for their game against North Dakota State. I love when they go to the smaller schools. They've been to JMU before. I love that they do this once a year. Good for ESPN.
Good for them. They've been to those schools more than they've been to Pitt in the last 15 years. When are we going to get
Pitt needs to give them a reason to be here.
Most sacks in the country. By a lot, right? Who's the next closest? We got are we up 6?
I think Ohio State is actually up there.
All right, rooting hard for the Badgers to protect their noodle-arm quarterback this week and hopefully come within 2 touchdowns. Fun college football week, but I would say, if you're looking on a national scale, Pam, Pitt's in probably the 4th or 5th best game of the week.
Yeah, this week it's a good week for people to focus in on the Panthers. What channel's the game on?
It's going to be ESPN regular.
Oh, wow.
So regular ESPN, big noon kickoff, Pitt versus the U, and it's a week we've all had circled on our calendar, so enjoy it, and hopefully Pitt gets 10 sacks this week, and we're back next week talking about a ranked football team in the top 25. I truly believe that will happen if Pitt wins this game, right, Vince?
I'm not going to count on it with those voters. I think it depends on who loses around the country, but most importantly is we got to take care of our own business.
And also keep getting a lot of sacks because that's going to help. You got anything left, Pam? Anything else we should know? I guess at H2P Show on social media?
Yeah, at H2P Show on Twitter and Instagram.
And make sure to look forward to our special basketball episodes. They're going to be coming up next week.
Yes, Hoops previews, Miami Pitt recap, and of course, looking ahead to the next game, which will be the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Until next week, though, I'm Alan, and I'd like to say, hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.